Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to our new show, The Business Case for Polkadot. And today I have a pleasure to have Richard, co-founder of Xcavate, with me. And we're doing this series in partnership with Polkadot Blockchain Academy. And it is my pleasure to welcome Richard on stage.
Hi,
Richard.
Hi,
Hello, how are you today?
Yeah, very well, thank you. From relatively sunny UK. Just live in Hertford, which is north of London, so in between London and Cambridge.
Nice to have you with us today, Richard. So without further ado, let's jump in and let's tell your story to our audience. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about how did you get into this rabbit hole of the Web3 and how did you discover Polkadot?
So my name is Richard Holdsworth. I'm married, 2 kids, a mad dog called Coco. I probably need to go back to about 2012. That's when I started my Web2 business. Before that, I had other businesses, and before that, I was working for Coca-Cola for 10 years in engineering and management. And I helped deliver a large multi-million-pound automated warehouse system on the back of a factory in North London. But 2012 sort of got to grips with software, with Web2 projects. After building quite a lot, got to about 2015, and one of my Web2 clients had mentioned buying some Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. And I really couldn't see the value in it. And obviously, like a lot of people, I didn't invest. Regret that quite a lot up to this point. But I was intrigued by the technology behind Bitcoin. And more I researched, the more I sort of went down the rabbit hole. Got to sort of I looked at what Gavin had done with Ethereum, and then his idea behind Polkadot and this whole multi-chain, interoperable, sort of trustless environment. What really intrigued me was the idea of a forkless upgrade, which was totally unheard of within any ecosystem. So that drew me in, and I sort of absorbed every bit of information I could, every video, every bit of information online. I mean, there's a great team behind Polkadot. It's obviously not just Gavin, but I really was drawn in also by the story, by the vision that Gavin and the team portrayed about a better future for everyone and using technology. You know, it came from the whole. It was born from the crash in 2008. The big financial system sort of broke. However, the people that bore the brunt was the average person. You know, it took loads of people down. Real estate was a massive issue. It was just so over leveraged. So, you know, I knew that needed to change, but I felt quite powerless until blockchain came along. In actual fact, if I go back to 2015, my sister became homeless in 2014. One of her daughters was creating. She was actually at university, but she was a filmmaker. She filmed the whole experience. I actually only really understood the full impact of what went on when I watched the film. And she won a Junior BAFTA award. But that was more about she was being priced out of the market. And then when she tried to get back in, you know, she couldn't. And then she found herself in a halfway house. That is a huge driver in what I'm trying to achieve in terms of making real estate fairer. And it's, you know, there's plenty of opportunity to make money, but how do we add more value to the average person? How do we make it more accessible? And the more opportunity there is for developers to create more sustainable developments and be more innovative and have access to easy finance, then the more chance there is for everyone to get affordable homes and have utility in real estate without huge expense. So that's a lot to unpack, I guess.
It is. It's a fascinating story. It's also a very personal story. Like the driver, primary driver behind your building your company is your helping your close circle of people. And in Polkadot, what we always talk about a lot is the community, is the transformation, the giving back, the power of the community. And the community is not only dot holders, but it's a wider group of people who are building applications, building companies like you, Polkadot ambassadors like myself, multiple companies who are bringing value into this ecosystem via services, podcasts for marketing, for adoption, for spreading the word, but also for supporting the larger ecosystem. And one of such organizations that is supporting the ecosystem a lot and is now building the founders track is our partner, Polkadot Blockchain Academy. So you are also an alumni of Polkadot Blockchain Academy. Tell us about your experience. Like, how did you discover it? Which one did you attend, and how was the overall experience and this connection with the ecosystem?
Thank you. It goes back to 2022. So myself and Alex, my co-founder, we attended the Polkadot Decoded in London, the remote event, which was in some bar downstairs in London. There were about 5 people attending, and one of those people was Tim Doby, who helps to recruit within Parity and the Polkadot ecosystem, and is a key driver and an organizer of the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. So I got really chatty with him. We both loved cars and various other things as well as blockchain, but I didn't think anything more of it. I just carried on with my journey, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But about a year later, I got chatting with someone at Copenhagen, and there was the talk of the Blockchain Academy going on in Berkeley in the US, and that's when I applied, and then it sort of snowballed from there. But it was an amazing experience. It's very difficult to put into words. It's a very intense time, and I was on the founders track. This was the first cohort of founders. Originally, it started in Cambridge a year before, and then they had 6 months later a cohort in Buenos Aires, and they were all engineers. So these are really techie, very amazing engineers, amazing software guys. I know how to code. I'm very comfortable with tech, but I'm not a brilliant coder. I know my limitations, and but what was great about the Blockchain Academy was the first few lessons were more about concepts and the idea that bore the identity of Polkadot. So it was things like cryptography. I mean, Rob Habermeyer, who's one of the co-founders, I think he was like 12 when he started with Polkadot. Crazy, really, really intelligent guy, lovely person. Chatting about his brothers in a rock band. I've got lots of friends in the music industry, and I love that area. So, that was the great thing about the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. You get to meet the guys that actually built Polkadot and get to understand the thought process behind it, the concepts that drew them to think the way they did about things like game theory. Never really came across that before the Blockchain Academy. So thinking about how to incentivize and de-incentivize players within the ecosystem. So things like collators, how do you reward them? How do you slash them? Things like that. And also things like cryptography, how robust, this is like military grade security, and we've got the shared security within the ecosystem. This is totally unheard of before Polkadot came along. And to hear people that actually created it and had the idea and put it into action in a live environment was so powerful. I mean, you get into the weeds later on in terms of Substrate and the SDK behind Polkadot and how to build and how to make tools. I mean, we've got an amazing toolkit, and there's an army of developers. I think that's what's really powerful, is the community is not just about people spreading the word and investing in Polkadot, the dot or whatever. Other ecosystems are very focused on the financials. When's it going to go to the moon and all that sort of stuff. That's not the same in Polkadot. It's more about the technology. It's more about how we can empower people, how we can change lives across a myriad of different businesses, of different use cases. But the academy, as well as all of that, and I can go on for hours. The people I met were incredible, and the people gave up their time, like founders, Kilt, Protocol. There's Polymech, loads and loads of other founders that gave up their time. Moonbeam. All these people have gone through the process of building on Polkadot, launching businesses, and they gave up their time to tell us about those stories, walk us through the pain points, and help us to overcome those. So so there's so much to it, and I'm really excited for anyone going to Hong Kong and Singapore next year. I think they're going to have an amazing time, and it will really help to accelerate their projects as well, because it was amazing. I mean, I'm utilizing information every day that I learned from Polkadot Blockchain Academy. I'm utilizing the network, and I want our project to succeed, so I can give back as well to the Polkadot ecosystem, because at the moment I feel we're just taking. Although a couple of my team members are part of the Heroes program, so they're giving back, and hopefully a couple of them are going to go on to the Blockchain Academy engineers track in Singapore. So yeah,
amazing. So the whole team is joining Polkadot Blockchain Academy.
Yeah,
amazing. And Richard, what are like the highlights, if you were to pick like 3 things that are most memorable about your experience? What would those be?
So there was a lot of stuff that happened in the classroom. I got to meet Gavin Wood and ask him questions about XCM, which is cross consensus messaging. So the ability to send extrinsics, which are transactions from one chain to another, but it's a lot more abstract than that, and that is amazing. But it also comes with some problems, that if certain blockchains are approaching it in one way, then how do we get some commonality? So I think there's a lot of teams that are working on making that more user friendly for the blockchain teams, and helping the interoperability, because we needed a common approach for generalized sort of communication mechanisms. But it's Polkadot of centered around abstracting everything to make it modular, but sometimes that can come with complications and problems. So it's just how the community works together to overcome those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Together we are the power that can solve everything, because technology is always designed, is run by the people, by humans. So I always say that we need that human interaction. And the motto of Polkadot, less trust, more truth, and unstoppable technologies. And we're building resilience in the ecosystem. However, we are at the very, very early stage, and having fantastic founders who are committed to their mission, vision, passion, and come together to build a better world. And Polkadot is blockchain on blockchain, so everybody in the ecosystem is collaborating. Every parachain, every application is benefiting from being in this ecosystem, being together and building tooling, primitives, everything, building this technology out together, and as well as attracting wider communities and other businesses. And speaking about community, I wanted to ask you about your team members, as you already mentioned, they will be joining Hong Kong and Singapore. So who are your co-founders? How did you find your team? And tell us a little bit more insights on who's behind Xcavate.
So I sort of come from the tech side, but Alex, my co-founder, Alex Ward, he's property through and through. He had a stint as a professional footballer. He's played football in UK, in in Cyprus and other parts of the world. He's also had many businesses related to real estate throughout the world, Europe and UK and America. But he's not a Luddite. I think that's unfair because he understands technology. He's good with phones and laptops and all the rest of it, but he doesn't understand deep code. He doesn't understand blockchain. He's learned a lot over the last few years that we've been together. I mean, we're both golfers. I spent most of my time in the woods, whereas he's quite a good golfer. So the very rare times that we were on the fairway together, we'd have a chat about various things, and that led us on to talking about fractional ownership of real estate. So that was the sort of building blocks to start the Xcavate concept. And then we've got an amazing team. We've got Victor, who's our product designer. He's based in Africa. We've got his brother, who's Isaac. He's a front-end developer, full stack. We've got Oliver, who's based in Canada. We've got Alan, again, a full stack. We've got Rene, Ganesh, and Yuri and Connor. These are all sort of Substrate developers. Yuri and Connor are both PBA alumni. So Yuri was from Buenos Aires, and Connor was from the Berkeley cohort. So we've got a real richness of diversity, all ages, all experience, all backgrounds. But that melting pot was what makes us really powerful. As we've got the deep understanding of the technical aspect of Substrate and Polkadot, and that has come over time. And there's been a lot of pain to get there. I mean, last year, myself and Alex, we were quite focused on sort of outsourcing all of the technical aspects of the build. And then I spoke to Ingo from Kilt, the Kilt protocol, because we knew that digital identity was going to be a big part of our offering, our business strategy. And we didn't want to do that ourselves. You look in other ecosystems and everyone's trying to do everything, and you can't do everything. You need to have specialisms, and that's the great thing about Polkadot, is that we can leverage other blockchains that do things really well, like the Kilt protocol. So when I was speaking to Ingo, getting an understanding about what they're doing and how we can utilize and integrate their system within our protocol, he said, "What are you doing? Why are you outsourcing this stuff? You need to do it yourself. You need to go through the pain of the build. You need to, go like launch yourself into a couple of hackathons and get this team from the ground up." And that was the best advice I'd ever received, because that's the first hackathon we did. I did a couple. One was more of a sort of a dip into the sort of foray. The second one was part of Consensus. It was the Web3-athon. And Victor, Rene, and Ganesh are all still with me from that hackathon. So that was really powerful. Sorry, I've lost the train of thought now where I was going, but that's the team and that's the experience we've got. Does that help?
This is fantastic. So let's dive deeper into Xcavate, your business model, your vision, and general overview of the market, because I'm sure many of our attendees today would be curious, why did you choose real estate industry? You spoke about personal reasons at the beginning of our conversation today, but what is really happening in that landscape of real estate? There were some, early, there was an amazing report actually in 2020 by Oxford about blockchain and real estate, and how we have really an untapped potential in the market, $1 trillion market to cover and to democratize and make it more liquid. So comparing to 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, where are we now? What is this market looking like, and how Xcavate is going to make a difference on the market?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what we came at this from a problem solution point of view. I think it's no good building tech and then expecting people to use it. It needs to have value added. It needs to solve problems. So the first thing we did was we looked at what the problems were, and that's where Alex, his experience came into play. he's helped buy land, sourced land, buy land for developers. He's then helped them market those developments once they've built the offerings, whether they're apartments or houses, and he understands the pain points. So the first pain point we looked at was easy finance for small to medium sized real estate developers. So most small to medium sized real estate developers, if they go to a bank, it's a really complex process. It takes forever. If you speak to the developer, it can take up to 9 months, even more, for just to source the funds. And they can turn around at the last minute, change the loan terms or the APR rates. And if you're a real estate developer, you can't operate like that. So sometimes you either delay your build or you lose that build altogether, that opportunity. So that was the first pain point that we looked at. And the second point is about fractional ownership. So if you want to invest in real estate, traditionally, you need a large sum of money, or you need to trust a lot of third-party intermediaries. So there's loads of funds out there. You can buy real estate investment trusts that you can put your money into a fund. They then go and source the real estate, and then hopefully that money goes up. Those are great for some people, and that's fine. But what if you want to invest in a particular property and you want more control over the whole process? What if you don't want to trust a bank or a solicitor or an estate agent? All of that value can go back into the investor rather than have to be spread out and be diluted over lots of different parties. So those were the two areas that we focused on, and that's why we've literally built our protocol from the ground up based on a lending protocol and an asset tokenization, purely around eliminating or reducing as much as possible any third party. Does that make sense?
Sounds very promising, right? The peer-to-peer and eliminating all the middlemen. That's the promise, the fundamental promise of the blockchain technology. And Richard, how is the market right now? For example, where are you starting to operate? Would it be the UK? Are you going globally straight away? Are you focusing on any specific tokenization case?
Obviously, the opportunity is global, but we know the UK market. The UK market is quite stable. It has gone through some serious issues over the last couple of years, but we're starting to see green shoots. We're starting to see interest rates coming down. There's more confidence in the market, but we're very much concentrated on areas around major cities like London, Manchester, Leeds. So we've got a network of about 70 real estate developers already. So we can utilize that. They've got completed buildings and apartments that we can get live. We're looking to launch probably around about Q2 2024, but there's an MVP we've built, so we're doing some live testing with sort of a number of real estate developers and investors next week. So we'll get some feedback and we'll build that into our system. But I really think 2024 is going to be a bull year for crypto, but also for real estate. And it's just about how we capitalize on that. And I think what we're going to do is start quite slow. So we've got the idea that we can sell about 365 properties in the first year. We're going to fractionalize those. Initially, we're going to look at fractionalizing with 100 NFTs, and then we'll look at the possibility of the developers having free range of indicating how many NFTs they want per property, because obviously that will have impact on how quickly the NFTs are sold and how quickly they can realize the money within that asset. But it's all those sort of small elements that we can sort through over the coming months before we go live. But and then the idea is that towards the back end of next year, we'll look at launching in region 2. And we haven't set our sights on a particular region yet, because we could go to Australia because they have similar legal structure to us. We could go to the UAE. We could go to other parts of Europe, although you do need notaries in other parts of Europe. So that is part of our protocol and part of our plan. But I think we want to keep it simple for the moment. Just get a number of properties sold and under management with letting agents that are managed through the protocol. So that's another unique part of our system, is we're not managing anything. We're not looking to initially Alex's company will manage the first couple of properties, but what we want to do is through the DID system and verifiable credentials, each letting agent, once they're verified, will get allocated properties based on their geographic locations and the properties locations. And then the NFT holders in the properties can actually vote those letting agents out if they don't perform as they should do, or they're not performing as per like a transparent and realistic market fees and things like that. So there'll be a lot of power led by the NFT holders, the investors. And we want to keep that, because in essence, if you're an investor investing in a property, you want control over what happens with that property.
So your offering for the investors would be invest in your technology as well as invest in the real estate property. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we want to build a community. So the idea is that we've got a native token, the Xcavate token, and we'll be launching that next year. And what that will do, there's a number of things that will provide. That coin holders can stake their tokens in a community loan pool that will be lent out to real estate developers, and they will get an aggregated APR of all the live loans. And one of the things that will, as part of our sort of bigger picture, trying to be sort of environmentally friendly and sustainable, is that we will reward the more sustainable the build is, they'll get lower interest rates on their loans. So we're trying to build those sort of aspects in, and the more loans that they take out and more successful deliveries, then again they'll get better APR rates. So the coin holders or the token holders can stake their tokens within the community loan pool. They can vote and have a say on the governance of the system and the different geographic locations and the regions we go into. They can have a say on what sort of percentages of the fees go into new projects or different projects that help sustainability, like the environment or housing, social projects, things like that. There's a lot of power with the community. So we want to build up that community globally, but obviously we want to start with the real estate, which is in the area that we know best, which is the UK. But it's quite agnostic, and we've taken a lot of things away from Polkadot. Is our protocol is quite abstract in terms of the geographic locations. We just need to be mindful that there are different legal aspects in different regions. Therefore, we need to be legally compliant. And that's another great thing about the Polkadot Blockchain Academy is Chrissy Hill, who's the legal counsel for Parity and Polkadot. She introduced us to Carly from Gateway 21, who is our legal counsel in the UK now, and she is helping us sort of traverse that whole legal compliance area, which is not our forte. Alex knows the legal aspects for real estate ownership and fractional ownership, but in terms of tokenization and things like that and making securities, it's a whole different ballgame, and we can't take any chances with that, especially what's happened. We take our own reputation very seriously, but we also take the reputation of Polkadot and the whole community very seriously. And there's been issues in the past with other communities, and it's destroyed them. So I think it's a huge risk that we're taking very seriously.
That's very encouraging to hear, because community is your core, is your support. Did you already start building it out, or you're just planning to launch a call for joining? Would that be sort of ambassador program as well, or would it just be core community of more like real estate people passionate about real estate or professionals in the real estate sector?
I think there'll be a mix, because we'll need ambassadors that are bought into the vision and can educate and have small meetups and things like that. But there'll be larger events that we've driven around educating real estate investors, real estate developers, and just walking them through the whole process. Because from my Web2 background, if it's easy to use and easy to understand, then you're more likely to get adoption. And that will be our philosophy with the community and the ambassadors. The ambassadors need to be our front of face and sort of deliver the message, but as clearly and concisely and as simply as possible. And then we'll have a whole education suite online to support that as well.
Fantastic. Well, Polkadot ambassadors, please reach out to Richard. There is a lot that we can do as a community, and we're already doing. So Polkadot ambassadors are supporting parachains and projects that come into the community. And it's not only a traditional sort of marketing ambassadorship. It's much more than that. It's really genuine relationships, people who are interested in technology, building out applications or some tooling for the ecosystem, people who are more business oriented. So it's a nice community. It's a nice environment to be in. And now we're going on chain. So this would be the first on chain ambassador program in Polkadot, which is very, very exciting. And hopefully all the parachains and all the teams building will, find valuable contributors in that community as well. And Richard, moving to your business model and your product offering, I would like to ask you about your competition. Have you considered other teams in the market, and how are you differentiating yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of projects out there, but the key players are people like Realty. They've done a great job in fractional ownership of individual properties. But when you sort of delve a little bit deeper, the properties are quite, in the middle of nowhere in terms of America. And it's very difficult. If you're on the other side of the world, how do you know the value of that property, and how do you know how much that's going to be, what the rental is going to be, and how often the occupants, what sort of occupancy rates they're going to get. So I think there's lots of things we've looked at and we've improved and iterated on within our protocol. I think there's Propy, which is more of a SaaS. I know it's got blockchain within it, and you can pay with blockchain currency, cryptocurrencies. But in essence, what they've tried to do is sort of create blockchain as a service, and sort of put the fundamental things like deeds on chain. But if you look at the detail, they're actually putting it out as a service with a lot of the letting agents and the Realty agents in the US. So I think, again, we can do something different. I watched, there was a podcast yesterday. There's a project, quite an interesting project in the UAE, which is Prop Tech, I think they're called, or Prop Chain. They're on the Polygon network, and they're fractionalizing very big ticket items at the moment, which, the $5 million apartments in Dubai and things like that. So, but they're doing it as a debt ticket. So it's a different offering to what we're doing. We're looking at individual everyday properties, but in key locations around key cities. And what we're doing is, the way we're checking on price is we're utilizing the same software that Rightmove and Zillow uses. So if you imagine, there's certain key features within a property which give it its value. Obviously, there's a little bit of subjectivity, but if there's 20 data points of a similar property around that area, and then there's an upper and lower limit, and the way we're bringing that in is that a real estate developer will say this property is worth £300,000 or dollars, but then how do you sense check? How do you know that is a realistic price? Well, if we've used what's called an oracle, which is a way of the blockchain talking to the outside world. So there's a brilliant Polkadot ecosystem team called Accurest. So we can in a decentralized way, we can send a message to the outside world saying, right, these are the details about this particular property. What are the upper and lower limit bands of this kind of property? And does this amount that the real estate developer said that this property is worth fit into that band? So there's a sense check, as well as ownership check as well. So is this real estate developer, do they own the deeds? As well as the planning permission, have they gone through planning permission? Is that all been accepted? Because we've got very rigorous planning in the UK. So those three checks on chain show the potential investors that this is a real property, this is a real cost, and then the market will sort itself out, knowing that this is maybe the high end of the band or low end of the band. But that's really where we've come from, to try and make it as transparent as possible.
Sounds absolutely fantastic, Richard. And who are your ideal partners? Let's talk broadly, like what actors are you interested in having in the ecosystem who can enhance your business model, who can support Xcavate and take it to the next level? Would it be somebody from the real estate industry? Would it be some technical partnerships? And today we actually have a special guest with us who I will bring shortly after this part of the episode. Richard, over to you.
So it's quite a mix, because we do need some technical partners. I've mentioned Kilt protocol. There's also verifiable credentials that are very important, that for KYC and KYB and AML, who someone is. That goes for the real estate investors, that goes for the real estate developers, that goes for the letting agents. But we also need surveyors to sense check, the various stages of the build of a real estate development. We also need, well, there's a fantastic sub-project within Polkadot, which is called Archismo. I can never say it. Archismo, which is all to do with architects and creating NFTs of the architect's drawings. But there's a more serious aspect to it as well. There'll be a marketplace for architects. That's all part of our bigger plan, is to create this community that helps the wider real estate industry. So, installers of solar panels, the heat pumps, ground source heat pumps. There's loads of A Bit Green are actually a chain on Polkadot. They can provide carbon credits. So we've had chats with them to see how we can integrate that with our real exchange dApp that focuses on decentralizing smaller projects around the world. Maybe they want to build a housing shelter. They can come to our platform. They can create the project. They can sell NFTs. The NFT holders then vote on the project's progression and delivery of tranches of money based on the evidence that they provide. And that can work for the environment as well. So say you wanted to plant 1 million trees, you could raise $200,000 in South America. A small charity on the ground in South America knows what's needed once they've gone through the KYC checks, KYB. Then the NFT holders have control, and there's an element there of giving, but it's not just giving for giving's sake, and it's not trusting an entity. You're actually being part of that process. But we're going to.
So ownership is important.
Absolutely, but that's the power of NFTs. There's a myriad of things you can do with them. But one of the things that we're going to do is part of the fees that are generated from the real estate transaction. So all of the NFT sales there'll be maybe a 1% to start point, and then that'll be governed by governance. But it needs to be sort of realistic. So maybe 5% of those fees can go into the real exchange dApp to pay for a feeless transaction. So all of the value that's created on that NFT marketplace goes to those chosen charities. or developments. And there's an opportunity for Xcav holders, maybe DOT holders, to bond their tokens to a project, and maybe that, ordinarily if they stake, they earn rewards. Those rewards can go to the charity or the project. So there's lots of different things that we've got that we're working on. We've joined the Winter Polkadot Hackathon in Hong Kong remotely, and we're launching the Real Exchange DApp as part of that project. So we're really excited. There's so much going on, so much energy. There's so much we could do in terms of partnerships, but we have to focus. There's so much noise in this industry, and unless you focus on what is important and just take it one step at a time, you're never going to get where you need to go. So, we're trying to temper that.
Focus on what matters.
Yeah, very much so.
Exactly. And I also wanted you to present as our guest and talk about your upcoming collaboration with Polymake protocol. So I would like to bring Casper from Polymake on stage, and Richard, maybe you would start with an introduction. Hello, Casper.
So I met Casper. I think I met him at the Decoded. So I knew about Polymake before Decoded, but I made it my mission to speak to him. He was on stage with Ingo from Kilt and Deloitte. And it's a fantastic project. It's really needed what they're doing. I won't go into too much detail, but as a potential project building on Polkadot, we had a lot of issues initially, sort of understanding Substrate and with the build. But the bigger issue was getting funding. We've bootstrapped our project as much as we can, and we've gone along with a lot of help from our team without necessarily huge rewards for them. Hopefully, we can reward them more next year. But what Casper and his team have provided and built over the last few years is incredible, and I'm really, really excited for them and for us. But over to you, Casper.
Thank you very much for that very nice intro, Richard. Very short. Like Richard, you mentioned it already, but Polymake basically being fundraising infrastructure for anyone building in Web3, and I think, like, listening to the conversation already, I think it's very much a way of thinking about how different projects are building on Polkadot, that every single project can actually deliver services to other projects, and that by working together we can actually deliver something that's much more of a cohesive ecosystem and actually deliver much more product than what we see elsewhere in Web3, because all the different chains and projects that are launching on Polkadot can work together. And that was sort of the idea with Polymake of figuring out a way of how do we make it easy for projects to do fundraising in a regulatory compliant way. And obviously we started this journey a couple of years ago. I think now regulation and compliance has been much more highlighted for everybody in the blockchain and crypto community. And I think that's one of these things that we can definitely do on Polkadot and make sure that you can actually be regulatory compliant but still act in a Web3 native way and interact between different protocols.
This sounds super exciting, Casper. So it means that more projects can come into Polkadot, get funding in an alternative way, not just from VCs or crowdfunding. There is a new tool, and we're looking forward to an exciting 2024, to the bull run and to more liquidity coming to blockchain.
Yeah, I think that is definitely needed. Let's see. I think also what is really strong with Polkadot is the entire tech. Like what can we actually deliver? And I think what Richard was talking about, it's quite amazing that you can actually do something on chain with real estate that's very much like a real world asset. But how do you actually interact with that, and how do you put it on chain, and what are the different possibilities? And I think this sort of shows what we can actually do by utilizing the different chains in Polkadot working together to actually bring new products out that was not possible before. And of course, that needs funds, and we need more funds into the ecosystem as well. And for us, from Polymec, we look at how do we bring together both VCs, institutionals, professional investors, but also retail investors, and make sure everybody can actually get in and participate in projects early on, so that it's not just a VC game, but it's a community game, because the community is really what drives Polkadot, and also what drives Web3. Like, the whole difference on Web3 is that you can have much more distributed ownership, and I think we need to get back to that. And I think that's sort of that's what we are providing the tools for with Polymec, and helping all the new great projects launching of how do you actually also launch and do fundraising in a regulatory compliant way without having to go to centralized intermediaries to do it, but do it in a Web3 native way directly on chain.
That sounds incredible, Kasper. So for venture capital firms, for institutional investors, can you explain us how they can come in? What is the entry point? What's your value proposition for them? And because I'm sure many of venture capitalists are watching us right now and will be watching the stream. So how can they be part of the Polkadot ecosystem? Also, one important note a message that I wanted to deliver today is that Substrate technology is getting a massive adoption. Cardano just announced that they are moving to Substrate. Polygon has plans to adopt Substrate. So we have succeeded as an ecosystem to deliver the best technology when it comes to anything blockchain is 3.0. We are really ecosystem 3.0, and nobody in this space, whoever comes in this space, any developer, any technical person, has any doubt that this is the best by far technology and really enjoys working with it. So how can businesses and investors now take part in the ecosystem?
I think it's a way of looking at how do you get access? How do you get access to the opportunities on early stage markets or what we call primary markets? Because once you have a token that is traded on exchanges or similar ways that is easier to get access to, then you have a established market for it. But what we're looking at is how can we actually make the market before you actually have like an open market? How do you make that accessible to everyone? And right now, I think if you look at institutionals or VCs, they are obviously limited by who are contacting them or who do they know, and that's a lot of the early stage fundraising markets in not only for crypto and blockchain, but for startups in general. It's very much limited by small groups of people that know someone, and then it's very much your closed network. And I think that's what the power of blockchain can do, is that you can bring together a much larger community and bring out those exciting deals to a much larger community. So the access is definitely a different thing. You can also get easier information about the project, how other people in the community thinks about the project, because that's one of the innovations that we have on Polymec, is that every single project gets evaluated by the community before they go for a fundraise. So the community will have access to go and evaluate the projects and give their opinion about the project. Is it a good project? Do they think they can actually get the funds that they are asking for in the fundraise? So instead of you have to rely on your own limited knowledge about the project, you can also rely on the wide knowledge of the community that has been looking at the project, and you can share these things. And it's also financially incentivized to actually come up with a proper due diligence of the project. So we gather much more information about the project and making that information available to anyone that can participate on the market. So it's making a much more efficient way to access and getting a lot more access to both professional investors and institutionals, but definitely also the regular crypto user that are excited, want to be a part of the project. Like, ambassador program is a great way to get involved in projects, but then if you if you're not into the ambassadors program, then how do you get exposure to a project that you like early on? And that's what we also want to enable, that you as a project that are very early can still go out and get funding, not only from VCs and institutionals, but also from your future users. Because your users should be the ones that you definitely want to have in from the beginning, because they can even give you feedback while you're building, and don't wait until to get your users in at the very, very late stage. So that's how, when we are doing our fundraisers, that we allow both VCs, institutionals, but also the professional and the retail crypto user to be able to participate from a very early stage.
This sounds like a real community revolution, Casper, to me. If anyone wants to join you, how can they find you? What are your social handles, website, or any information you would like to share for the community to join?
Yeah, so our website is polymake.org, and our Twitter handle would be Polymake Protocol. We also have an official Telegram channel, so if you have questions, that's also a place to interact. And we are looking at very close to launch in the coming months. So there will be a lot of exciting news coming out from Polymake in the next couple of months, and also a lot of information about what are the early projects that will be the first projects to look at doing fundraisers on Polymake.
So we will soon see Xcavate on the Polymake page. So everybody who is interested. Okay, we're looking forward. Today is the day, no big announcements yet, but we give you a hint, guys. So please follow Xcavate, Polymake, and see what's up in store for 2024. Casper, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
Guys, please follow. And Richard, we have a question from the audience, as we have about 5 minutes left until the end of our live stream today. So Tiago is asking us, how are real estate agents and other key business stakeholders adopting and perceiving Web3 tech and its technological shifts? So where are we in terms of adoption? I would add to this, when you go to conferences, when you're having business conversations outside of Web3 space, is there really Web3? Does this word come up? Does the NFT for real estate or tokenization of real estate a thing now?
I'll be absolutely honest. I think that we're only really at the cusp of them starting to understand. Real estate has tried to be tokenized for many, many years, but the actual agents themselves, it's not really impacted them that much. So I think they are very interested in knowing how it can be sort of mass adopted. But at the moment, there's not been the opportunity for them to really get involved because the technology has been so complex. But now I think it's matured. Now we can start to build things that actually interoperable with their own systems. So a simple API that joins all of the most used real estate systems, to get a property onboarded, that should be interoperable with a blockchain. So it makes it seamless. And that's possible now. But that obviously over the years, it's been a frustration that those sort of elements haven't been available. But I think it's that they've been more and more interested in the space, but with SPF and Celsius and other big problems, we're having to rebuild trust in the space. So I think until that trust is warranted, which we're trying to build, then it will be something that won't get adopted by everyone straight away. There'll be a few proven cases, and then it'll build, and then there'll be mass adoption once. Well, especially real estate developers, if they find that this is a better way of getting to a global market, we won't need to advertise to them. They'll all want to jump on board straight away. They won't understand the technology, but they'll just get on board with it, and we can facilitate an education system, and there'll be people that can handhold them to get those systems in place. But generally speaking, we're going to try and make it as simple and painless as possible to integrate both the Web 2 to Web 3.
Absolutely. Web 2.5, the user experience to get familiarized, but then on the back end, we're using Polkadot, which is the centralized protocol. So it doesn't have problems that centralized blockchains have. And this is what excites us all. And in this ecosystem, in this bear market, things were slow, but there was no drama happening in this space, because we are building robust, resilient technology. There is a proof for businesses to come in and to really have, trust in, but rather truth and everything very clear, very easy to use. And there is more tooling that we would need to build in 2024 for the end users to be to have better onboarding experience, as well as institutions or big companies when they come in to just easily access wallets. And we now have Polkadot.js is not a wallet, by the way, guys, it's a developer tool. Please check Talisman and Nova Wallet. There are many more easy applications for everybody coming on the market, available on the mobile phone. So things are progressing, and growth happens underneath in the bear market, and we're looking forward to what's going to pop up next year. And Richard, thank you so much for joining us today for the live stream. I really enjoyed these conversations. And where can we find you? Where can we follow you? And also your concluding message to the community.
Probably the easiest way of getting any information is from Twitter, LinkedIn as well. But yeah, we're literally just starting to build our community, so bear with us, because we're doing everything ourselves, and it's there's a lot of work there, but we're progressing not quite nicely. But we need more followers, we need more community spreading the word, and finally, just how fantastic Polkadot as a community is, how supportive it's been. Massive thanks to Polkadot Blockchain Academy. There's so many people that I need to thank. So I don't want to say any names particularly, because I'm going to forget loads of people. So just thank you to everyone. Thank you to Gavin. Thank you to Rob and all the team for developing such a fantastic system. But yeah, that's my last message.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for being part of this ecosystem. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This has been an exciting conversation, and we're looking forward to bringing you more founders, to unpacking more business models, and highlighting more markets where there is an opportunity for blockchain technology to play a key role in the coming decades. Thank you so much. Join us. Find all the links in the post down below. Check out Polkadot Blockchain Academy Next Wave, and see you soon. Have a great weekend.